What's going on, everyone? Today I want to show you how to install Fedora 40 Workstation from start to finish. The goal of this video is to literally show you every step of the way to get it going for a general use setup. If you are unfamiliar with my video content, I try to show everything for the most part exactly how you would see it all the way through. With that being said, let's jump in. Now I do want to mention that as of April 22nd, 2024, my video is one day early of the official launch of Fedora 40. I will be showing this all being done with the beta, but things with the full release should be right on par with what you see or very close to it. So this guide should work perfectly fine for you. Real quick, I just want to go over the minimum system configuration requirements. Now, one thing to mention is that what I'm showing here is the system configuration requirements for Fedora 39, but they should be exactly the same for version 40. So the key thing here is that you have a dual-core processor that is 2 GHz or faster, 2 GB of system memory or system RAM, and 15 GB of unallocated drive space. One thing I just want to mention right off the bat is that I do not recommend anyone dual boots Fedora and, say, a Windows environment. This day and age, the Windows environment is big into taking Windows updates, and it just ends up nuking the bootloader of the Linux environment that's on there. So I strongly recommend that if you are installing Fedora, that it is basically going to be your only operating system on the computer. So just wanted to give you that forewarning. And another thing just to mention is that every website that you do see in this video, I will have in a link down below in the description. And what I had shown was the minimum requirements. However, the recommended system requirements is that you have a 2 GHz quad-core processor or better, 4 GB of system memory, aka system RAM, and 20 GB of unallocated drive space. So this day and age, the requirements are not that hardcore. However, it is key that you fall into these specific specifications, otherwise you're not going to have a good time with the Fedora experience. And then one other thing to note is going to be the display resolution. So you're going to need a monitor that can do 1024 by 768. This day and age, that should not be a problem. And then for the minimum hardware for accelerated desktops, then you're going to need integrated Intel graphics GMA 9XX, which is pretty old this day and age. And the same goes for the NVIDIA recommendations and the Radeon recommendations, which these are all very old cards this day and age. So most machines out there that people are willing to install Fedora on are going to have this stuff. So with the hardware requirements out of the way, what you would do is you would go to the fedoraproject.org website here, which once again I will have a link for this in the description below. So when Fedora 40 does get released, their main page here will say latest release will be 40, and then you will be able to click on this and then just select the Fedora Workstation environment here. You click on download now. Now you are going to have two different options that you can kind of choose from the main portion here. One is that you can use the Fedora Media Writer, which is on the left here, and you can download the Windows version if you got a Windows machine currently, or a Mac version if you're on a Mac, or a Linux version if you're on a Linux distribution currently. Now the alternative to not using the Media Writer is that you can download just the ISO file itself, and you do have the option of Intel or AMD x86 64-bit processors here. You also have the option for ARM processors, ARM 64-bit processors here, and then you also have the option of actually downloading for PowerPC architectures that you can download here. For the sake of this video, I'm actually going to go ahead and download the ISO itself here, and then just be patient as it downloads, as it can take some time. Now the reason as to why I'm actually downloading the ISO instead of letting the Media Writer download it is that sometimes it can randomly just stop downloading, and then the Media Writer will just say it's corrupted. Whereas if I'm actually downloading it in the browser, then if it stalls out, then I can just continue where it left off. And then now that the ISO is downloaded, I am going to use the Media Writer just for the sake of actually creating the bootable thumb drive capability. So if you've got Windows, again, make sure to download the Windows one. If you've got Mac, download the Mac one. If you've got Linux, download the Linux one. So since I'm on Windows, I'm going to download this, and then we can open it. And then one thing is that you will need admin rights on your machine in order to actually initiate this whole process. So we'll click yes for this, and I agree. And then we can just leave it as the base install area here. We can click install. We can click on show details if you want to see the magic that's happening behind the scenes. And then we can click on next. and then finish. And then we're going to have potentially up to 3 options here. One is going to be to download automatically, which would have attempted to have downloaded the ISO image. However, since we already downloaded it, we are going to select the select ISO image. Sometimes you might see this restore option here. That generally happens if it failed somewhere along the way. In this case, it did at one point, but that's okay. So anyhow, I'm just going to choose the select ISO file, click next, and then we need to choose the ISO file here. So let's click on select, and then we will choose the downloads folder, and then here is the ISO for it. So we'll click open. Now, one thing to mention is that my recommendation is that you have an 8 GB thumb drive or larger. I recommend a USB 3.0 or better thumb drive just for the speed capabilities. However, if you only have a USB 2.0 drive on hand, that's perfectly fine as well. It's just going to be a little bit slower. And if you do not have any thumb drives at all and need a recommendation, I will have a recommended model of thumb drive in the link below that you can choose from, which is very inexpensive. Anyhow, the USB thumb drive should show up here. If it doesn't, you may need to unplug it, plug it back in. If it still doesn't show up, maybe have it plugged in and reboot your machine, and hopefully it will show up. So anyhow, everything looks good here. Let's click on write, and then just be patient as it crunches along here. Now it's just checking the data integrity here. So if all went well, we should see the finished portion here, so we can click on finish. And then we can just go ahead and click the X to get out of this here. And if anything in reference to formatting disks or whatnot pops up here, which this appears to have shown up in the background, we're just going to click cancel for that. So now the key thing will be to get your machine to actually boot off of the thumb drive. Now, unfortunately, every manufacturer and model can be very different from each other. So for instance, to get the machine to actually boot from a thumb drive, you may have to press the F1 key, the F2 key, F4, F5, F6, F7, F8, F9, F10, F12, the delete key, all sorts of different key options. So it's my recommendation, if you don't know the boot key on your machine, would be just to Google your make and model and just double check what it is. Since my machine is a Lenovo, the USB boot option is the F12 key. So I'm just going to go ahead and reboot my machine now, and then I'll just mash that key and we'll go in and start making the magic happen. Just going to start mashing the F12 key here after I rebooted the machine, and I'll just keep mashing it until hopefully it comes up. Perfect. So now it's giving us the startup device menu here. Now, of course, this is going to look different for every make and model. However, it should be pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to search for the USB hard disk drive, which is down below here. And there is my thumb drive. So I'm going to hit enter. Now, by default, at least for this one, is that it's doing a test this media and start Fedora Workstation live. However, what I'm actually going to do is hit the arrow up key, and then I'm just going to do start Fedora Workstation live 40 beta. That way we don't have to do the test media portion. So we'll hit enter. And once again, it would not say beta on it once it's actually in full stable release. And just be patient as it crunches along here. All right, so since this is a live installer here, we are going to choose the install Fedora portion. You could totally do not now and kind of take a sneak peek at how everything operates and whatnot. However, installing it is going to be the best option for speed and all the features and what have you. So we're just going to click on install Fedora, and it might zoom in. Let's just click install Fedora again here. And this is going to give you your option of choosing your language. In my case, I'm going to leave it as English, and I'm going to keep it as English United States. That's fine. However, feel free to choose what your options would be here. We'll click continue. And then since this is in beta, it's basically just warning me that this is a pre-release. However, you may not actually see this window. If for some reason you do, just click on I want to proceed. All right, next up, you are going to have your localization options. So if you need to switch up what your keyboard actually is, and you can click on this and it will give you your options of what you can choose for your specific needs. And then there's the time and date option here. I'm going to click on the time and date portion here, and I'm going to drop this down to New York. And then if you need to change anything else up in here, then feel free to. However, for the most part, as long as you select your region and nearest city, then everything should be happy. So I'm just going to click done. Next up is going to be the installation destination. Let's click on this. And so in here, it's going to show all of your hard drive options. So if you have multiple hard drives, you would see them here. I only have one hard drive, and that's a 500 gigabyte Samsung NVMe drive. So I'm going to select this. And the key thing is just make sure it has the check on it. Sometimes you have to double click, or the bar down below will just keep saying that no drive is selected. And then if you note also here where it mentions disks left unselected here will not be touched. So if you have multiple drives and you have not checked those, then they will not be touched. You also have the option to add a disk here if for some reason one is not showing up, and then you just follow the steps of adding a disk. And then as far as the storage configuration here, I'm going to leave it as automatic. However, you can customize it however you like here. You can also encrypt your data. In my case, I'm not going to encrypt it. However, if you select this, then it will put you through the paces of putting in a passphrase and all that good stuff. So anyhow, everything looks good here. So I will click on done. And then since there is already an operating system on this drive, it's saying that there isn't any free space because all the partitions have already taken up all the space. So let's click on reclaim space. And then I'm going to select delete all. And then I'm going to click on reclaim space, and then we can click on begin installation, and then just be patient as it goes ahead and works its magic here. And just be patient as it keeps crunching along here. It could take some time. All right, if all goes well, then we should see the complete message here. So we can click on finish installation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to reboot the machine. And right when the machine goes down, pull the thumb drive so that it comes back up happy. Sometimes if you pull the thumb drive while it's still in the live environment here, then all sorts of weird things can happen. So like I said, we'll reboot it. As soon as the screen goes black or we see the manufacturer's post page like Lenovo, pull the thumb drive and just let it work its magic. So up at the top here is the power options. So we'll click on this, click the little power button, and then we will click restart. And then I'm going to pull the thumb drive and restart. And then we'll just be patient as it boots up for the first time here. So you'll be met with this setup screen here where it basically says welcome to Fedora Linux 40. And we'll click on start setup. And if you do have wireless on your machine, then it will give you the option to connect to a wireless network here. However, I'm not going to do that right now because I've got it on hardwired network. However, if you do have it, then you can select your wireless network here, and then you can just put in the password and all that good stuff. So I'm just going to click skip for this here. Location services I like to keep on. Automatic problem reporting is completely up to you. I'm just going to leave it on for the sake of this video. However, if you are not willing to share data to them, then you can always toggle this off just by clicking it so it's grayed out just like that. Anyhow, I'll just leave it on and we'll hit next. And if you want to enable third-party repositories, then you can choose this option here. And then in here, you can type in a full name, and then it will generally toss in a username down below here. So we'll just type in digital scriptorium, and then I'm just going to shorten this here. We'll just keep it as digital. You can also feel free to have these as whatever you want. So that looks fine. If you're installing this in more of a hardcore environment, then you would also choose the enterprise login option here. However, since this is being used as a consumer-based computer, I'm just going to leave this as is. So we'll click next, and then you have to type in a password. Just for the sake of this video, I'm going to type in a very weak password. However, I do recommend that you type a nice strong password here. And it also will rate what the password is, and in this case, it's weak. And that's fine, like I said, for the sake of this video. However, I recommend trying to get it over into this section here for strong password options. So we'll just click next. It's going to say all done. Start using Fedora Linux. We can click on this. And if you want, you can take a tour here by clicking on this. However, I'm going to click skip, and then I'm going to click onto the desktop wallpaper here. I'm going to left click on it so it maximizes it. And then I'm going to right click on the background, and I'm going to go to display settings. I'm just going to change my resolution so this looks better. Generally speaking, it will automatically set the resolution of your monitor. However, if it doesn't, then just do what I did here. I'm setting it to the max resolution I have. Just going to apply this and keep changes. In my case, the computer did not understand what my resolution was because I'm using a PyKVM system to show all of this. So it was unable to synchronize and figure out what the actual monitor resolution was. So that's why I just forced it. So now with Fedora 40 installed, let's just go over some basic GUI options here. So since we already right-clicked on the desktop, let's go back in and take a look at that further. So if I right-click on the background here, the first option is to change your background. So let's click into this just to take a peek. And so you'll have a few options here. One is going to be the default style, and then there's also the dark option here. I'm going to choose the dark option, and here's how the dark option looks. And then if we scroll down, then there's going to be all the wallpaper options that come bundled in. And one thing to note is that as you see on these wallpapers here, There's a light option on the left, and then on the right is a dark option. And then of course you can always add a picture of something of your choosing, but I'm just going to leave my background as is. I'm just going to click out of this, and then we're going to right click one more time, and then we're going to click on display settings, and then this is going to show you your display setting options, and this is where you can decide what your orientation is going to be, your resolution, the monitor refresh rate, which generally speaking, like I said, resolution and refresh rate will be synchronized automatically for you. However, if things are a little wonky, as they were for me, feel free to adjust these. And then you also have a nightlight option here where you can choose what you want here. And then I'm just going to click out one more time just to show the third option in the right click menu here. So I'll right click one more time, and then it just goes to settings, which in this case it actually just goes to the display settings. And I won't do a massive detailed dive into this here, but we'll just go over some basics. So on the very top, you're going to have your Wi-Fi options, and it's going to show your visible networks if you have Wi-Fi. And then if you have Wi-Fi, it's also going to give you the option to turn it on and off. And then it will also give you a whole bunch of other options here. And then if we click on network, then in this case, I am using a wired connection network. So as we can see here, it is available, it's on, and it also shows the current connected state. So it is a gigabit connection. And then if you have Bluetooth, then you would have an option here. However, I do not have a Bluetooth controller on this machine. And then once again, the displays, sound. So this is your sound option. So feel free to change this however you like. Here's your volume control here. And I'll also show you the other option for volume a little bit later here in the upper right-hand corner. And then your output device is going to be showing here. If you have multiple, then you would see them here. You can click on test. If you have input devices, aka microphones, you would see them here. And then you're going to have an assortment of other sound options down below here. Power options, by default, it's on balanced. Balanced usually is perfectly fine to leave as is. One thing, however, you may want to choose up is going to be your screen blank time, which if you drop this down is going to give you all sorts of options, including never. So this is going to mean that if the machine is idle, then the screen will just go blank after X period of time if it's not set to never. Automatic suspend, if you've got a desktop, then I recommend turning this off. So we can just click when idle, turn it off, just so it doesn't just go to sleep all the time on you. But once again, if you don't want to do that, you can leave it on. That's perfectly fine. Power button behavior. In this case, if you were to press the power button while the machine is on, then it's going to give you whatever you select here. So by default, it's suspend, or you can also set to power off or do nothing. I'm just going to leave it as is. Over on the left again is multitasking. So this is just going to give you multiple options that you can choose from here. And then if we scroll down, it just gives even more stuff. In fact, I'm going to double click up here, which is going to maximize this so we can see this information better. And then over on the left is appearance, which is where we were previously for the default mixed mode, and then the dark mode here. And then of course your background options. You're going to have your apps. So here are the default applications that are installed on here. You can also search notifications. Here's your notification section. By default, everything that is installed is currently set to on. You have a do not disturb option, and there's a lock screen notifications option, which is enabled by default. So if you don't want notifications on the lock screen, you can feel free to turn that off. You're going to have your search options here, online accounts, if you want to set any of those up, sharing. So here is going to be your machine's name. And then if you want to do file sharing or media sharing, here are your options. Mouse and touchpad. These are going to be customizations for your mouse and touchpad. Keyboard configurations. Here are your color profiles, which you can feel free to fine tune. Printers. If you want to add a printer, you can add a printer here. One thing to note is that you will have to unlock it. You have accessibility features, privacy and security. It's going to be a number of things here. System gives you your region and language, date and time, users, remote desktop stuff, secure shell. About also shows your machine's name here, which you can change to your choosing. And it also shows you just your general system information. And then system details is more of the information on your machine. And we just close out of this. And we're just going to hit back, because one thing we do want to go over are going to be software updates to make sure that your machine is happy and has the latest and greatest updates for security patches and application patches for stability. So let's go ahead and click on software updates real quick. In this case, it already queried some updates and has them pending. As you may have actually noticed partially through this video, a little pop-up came up top mentioning critical updates and so on. So for right now, let's click on restart and update, and then you may get this where it says install pending software updates. Let's click restart and then just be patient as it installs those updates. And then we will continue on. And now it's got the installing updates page here, so just be patient. Now it's going to reboot. Let's go ahead and log in with the credentials that you put in. And then let's click on the background again there to maximize it. Real quick, let's go ahead and right click one more time. Let's go to settings, and then we're just going to run the software updates again. If it doesn't go to this screen here, then just go to system once more and click on software updates. And this looks like it's happy. However, let's just do a refresh in the top left corner. Just be patient, and it's still happy. So we can close out of this, and let's close out of that portion. So once again, key thing, always make sure your machine is up to date. That way you get rid of any bugs, security vulnerabilities, all that good stuff. So let's continue on here. So in the top center here is going to be your date and time, and you can left click on this here, and that's going to give you options, and it's also going to show your kind of past notifications. In this case, we can just go ahead and close out of this because we did our updates. And then you've got clocks, weather location information, calendar. There's also a do not disturb feature here if you don't want to see notifications. So that's that. We can click out of this. In the top right hand corner, in the furthest right, we click on this here. So you're going to have your wired information, your Wi-Fi information. If you have Wi-Fi, night light mode, you can adjust your power modes, and you can also change your style again here. In this case, because I have it as dark style, it is on. And then you're also going to have your volume here if you actually have sound on your machine. If you left click on that there, it's going to mute it. And then if you left click again, it's going to unmute it. And then you can feel free to adjust your sound options here. If you click on the little power button here, it will give you suspend, restart, power off, and log out. I'm just going to click out of here so we don't need to do any of those. The lock button would just lock the screen, so it would bring you back to the login page, but any of the apps that you have open would stay open in the background until you log back in again, and then they would be viewable again for you. And then you're going to have the gear icon, which is just going to bring up the system settings here, and we'll just go back to the thing here. And then on the left, furthest left here, if you click on this guy, it's going to be kind of your screenshot tool, and this is going to allow you to select the area. You can feel free to change this all up here. There's an area selection option. There's going to be the screen selection. You can choose a window if you had an application open. You can also choose if it's going to take a screenshot or if it's going to do a record screen option. And then you can just click on this to do the capture. So we'll just close out of this. Now let's just go back to the top again. And then that's everything for this portion here. So we can click out of that. And then when you log in, you would have noticed that the desktop here is partially minimized, and I've been mentioning to click into it so that we can take a look at things. However, you would have noticed that there was a bar down at the bottom here, which had a whole bunch of applications on it. To see that again, if you go to the top left corner here and click on this little icon, then it returns you back to that option page. So you're going to have Firefox, which is of course your web browser by default here. And we can just click on uncheck that and save and continue. And then we're just going to skip this step. You have the option to personalize it. I'm just going to skip that and then start browsing. So yeah, so here's your web browser. Very self-explanatory. We'll just close out of that. And I'll go back to the main page here. So you're going to have your calendar. So this is the big calendar here. And we can just close out of it. And let me go back one more time. And then you're going to have your files. So this is going to be the system file location and file directories. So this is just what you would expect. So you've got all sorts of things. If there are recent files, they'd be shown up here. If you started them, or favorited files, they would show up here. By default, it shows your home. Here's your documents, your downloads, your music folder. And also one thing just to mention is if you hover over these, it's going to show the exact file directory. So for instance, music is in the home digital, aka the digital or your username that you put in. And then music, there's pictures, videos, and your trash. And if you had stuff here, you can click on empty trash to clear that out. And there's also other locations. And other locations is also a good spot to take a look to see what you've got for disk space here. And if you do click into it, then it's going to show you your root directory here on your drive. So we'll close out of this and we'll go back to the top one more time. And then there is going to be the software store, and you can feel free to take a peek at things here. There's going to be your installed applications, updates, another spot to do updates. But in Explore is where you can hunt down all sorts of different applications. Feel free to explore this here, but I will not be showing anything else in this section here. So we'll close out of that. And again, let's head up to the top left. And then you've got your text editor, and you can feel free to type things in there, but we'll just close out of that and we will discard it. One more time, we go up there. And so all of your apps, to show all of your apps, you can click on the dots section here as it states show apps. Click on this, and it's going to show you all of your apps that are on your machine here. And it does also have a search bar at the top here. So if you wanted to find terminal, which I know it's very easy to find on that screen there, but I can do a search for it and I can pop it open. And here we are, there's the terminal. Anyhow, that's all you need to do to install Fedora 40 Workstation on your computer. If you found this video to be useful, please like it, and I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. If you haven't already taken a look at my other videos, I invite you to do so. Lots of interesting projects and operating system guides to check out. I do try to release a new video every 1 to 2 weeks. Anyhow, until next time, take it easy.